Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the reports of businesses who are now increasing their prices due to external factors impacting their business, not all of which are, but chief amongst them could be Brexit. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So there was a report in the Financial Times recently highlighting the increase in the price of goods that is happening now and will continue to happen. Now, it's not a Brexit article by any means, because the causes of these price increases are manifold. It cited, for example, the little bit of a blockage that we had in the Suez Canal that battered global supply chains. It may take a while for that to correct itself. Shortages of some raw materials have also increased the cost of production for some goods. It cited tariffs imposed by Donald Trump on building materials, which has hampered construction in the United States. It talked about vaccine nationalism. Now, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Obviously, if the countries who produce the bulk of our goods are not able to roll out their own vaccination program quickly due to protectionist policies in countries that produce it, then they need to maintain tighter coronavirus restrictions for longer. That means, of course, that their output remains low. And so the supply and demand market forces the cost of those goods to rise for the consumer. Now, from the UK's point of view, our government had no say on the US-China trade war. We didn't ask for the pandemic. We did, ask to be kicked in the knackers when we could have just had a slap in the face, but we certainly aren't responsible for a massive ship blocking up the Suez or for the fact that the pandemic exists. But although these external factors crop up all the time, it's the job of the government to try and reduce the impact on us where possible, regardless of who is to blame. But there are other pressures on businesses causing them to raise prices where they can as well. Brexit trade barriers with our closest trading partners have resulted in more costs for paperwork and for transport. And someone has to pay for these extra Brexit costs, and a business will run itself into the ground if it tries to do so. You can understand a business that's doing well absorbing costs caused by a temporary issue. But there's nothing temporary about our trading environment right now. At least it's not planned to be temporary. Brexit is an added cost to both imports and exports that is entirely self-inflicted. And because it's inflicted by the people still in charge, we won't actually take the necessary action to mitigate the damage. See, the government don't relish this damage. They didn't ask for it, they didn't want it. It was just a price that they didn't mind us paying for Brexit. And there's, if there's nothing they can do that helps without drawing attention to the damage they've done or reversing any of the steps that led to it, then they will surely consider it. Absolutely. If there's anything we can do that's easy and doesn't make us look like we were self-destructive lunatics, no problem at all. But what can they do? Brexit isn't a temporary blockage of a major trade route, as was the case for Suez. It's a permanent constriction of our trade routes. Brexit isn't an imposition of tariffs due to a trade war. In fact, on the tariffs front, things are going to get worse. So as a result of our behaviour over Northern Ireland, which, may be smoothed out soon, there'll be another video later on about that today, we're potentially going to be facing trade sanctions in the form of extra tariffs at some point. Unless Johnson, as I say, reins himself back before we need to get to that point. But the protocol aside, we agreed to a deal that means the EU gets to impose tariffs relatively quickly and easily whenever we diverge from EU standards that would affect the competitiveness of products. Well, Boris Johnson has every intention of diverging from standards that would affect the competitiveness of products. And then what happens on April the 30th? Again, I'll be talking more about this later, but that's the date the EU Parliament set itself for ratifying the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, already delayed because of our refusal to adhere to the Northern Ireland Protocol. Now, I don't know if this is a hard deadline or not. I don't know whether they'll ratify it on that date if we come to agreement in Northern Ireland or not. All I do know is the EU can't ratify the agreement while the UK breaches the earlier treaty. At some point, and neither side will want this happening, so I can well imagine it will be dragged out, but at some point the agreement has to either be ratified or refused. If refused, then we face the full suite of tariffs on our exports. We'll also presumably apply them to EU goods, because if we don't, we look even weaker. That will increase the cost of doing business with Europe in both directions. And the author of the article was talking about price increases for certain goods being here to stay. But the point I would make is that we face all of those same price increases. If we didn't have Brexit, all of the same price pressures that the rest of the world is facing, we would still have. But we've also got the ones relating to Brexit folded on top. So we are doubly hit in the UK. And when, well, at least in Britain. And when the items you're talking about aren't luxury items, where an increase of even 10% isn't going to stop wealthier customers buying it, might have them chuntering, oh, it's costing more now. They're still going to buy it. But what about necessary consumables that we all need and already too many people in the UK can only just about afford, with some not at all, if they can, you know, and then you're going to hit millions of people very hard. In fact, I talked recently about how the global crash of 2008 really put Labour on the back foot in 2010, the general election, certainly contributed to them losing that election. They'd had a decade of excellent growth with a Labour government, and all of a sudden it went badly wrong. And you can look at the Conservatives since 2010 and see that they have provided real terms wage cuts every single year since being in power. There were never any good times. So how do people still trust them with the economy? Perhaps it's because they blamed Labour for the first few years, and then because there were never any good times under the Conservatives, people didn't get a shock to the system. But if price increases on necessities hit us hard and it's sustained, that may well provide the shock to the system that causes people to question whether they should continue to believe the government when it keeps talking about the green shoots to recovery that never appear. They've been talking about those since 2015. Oh, austerity's over, they say, when we still clearly have it. Were it not for Brexit, you might imagine that the government would try and work a few fiddles to convince people that the good times are rolling come 2024. Vote for us to keep it going, or vote for Labour to see it all come crashing down. But how are they going to do that now? They need better trading arrangements with the EU, but those in the Conservative Party who pushed for a hard Brexit don't seem to want to allow it. So what will Johnson's government, or the government of his successor, do? You know, I said before Brexit, you can fool people that the country is doing well as long as the individual isn't doing too badly. The media can push that and people will believe it, because if they're not facing the consequences personally, they don't really see what's happening to other people. But if you put someone out of work and they can't get another job, or you plunge people into food poverty and there's no way out, or people can't pay all of their bills and so they have to do without some amenities that would seem essential to most of us. I did without gas when it happened to me. In those circumstances, blaming the EU or Labour stops working as well. Promising better times that never come isn't as effective because they're hurting now. They're not just managing. People that are just managing will vote for something on the promise that maybe it will get better, but they're doing okay now, so, you know, there's no imperative to change. But what about when there is an imperative to change? What if the right now for their lives is awful? And Brexit isn't fixed right now. If it even stays the same, the cost of goods is going to become much higher. The only way to bring them down is to soften Brexit. But that's politically impossible, it seems, with this government. The probability is that Brexit will harden, if anything, and the harder the Brexit, the greater the economic cost, the higher the prices for goods that millions of people already struggle to obtain. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.